All right, we are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a very special edition of the Search Engine Journal Show. And officially welcome, metal brothers and sisters. We're calling this episode Search and Destroy, SEO, Search Marketing, and Heavy Metal Music. I'll introduce everybody here first, and then I'll sort of explain what we're going to be doing. So I'm Danny Goodwin, Executive Editor of Search Engine Journal. Navah, you want to introduce yourself?
Hey everybody, Navah Hopkins, Director of Paid Media over at Hennessey Digital. Recently crowned number 6 PPC Influencer of 2020. Shout outs to everyone on that list, amazing folks. And I am here for profit and metal in equal parts. So let's have some fun.
Nice. And congrats on being number 6. That's perfect metal number.
Thank you. Oh, Jesse, I forgot. I'm also the Ask the PPC. I'm also for plugging SEJ since we are here. Sure. I'm also the Ask the PPC. So if you have PPC specific questions, I know this is going to probably skew more SEO. I would love to answer them in the most metal way possible.
Very cool. All right, Jesse.
I'm Jesse McDonald. I'm a global SEO strategist for IBM. Been in SEO for about almost 7 years now, and sometimes listed as a top 140 SEO to follow by SEJ, and then also was a frequent contributor on SEJ up until my daughter was born 3 months ago, and that's not happening right now. So we'll see what the future holds. But yeah, that's me.
Welcome, Jesse. And John, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm John McAlpin. I am the SEO Director for Cardinal Digital Marketing. First off, Navah is my number 1 PPC if I have questions, so throwing that out there. I'm also a contributor for SEJ when I have time. I'm also on the board of directors for DFW SEM, helping Bill Hartzer run State of Search this year. Hopefully we can do it in person. If not, we'll make it happen online. And yeah, here for the metal and the fun.
Nice. Yeah, so this will be our most metal edition ever. And what are we doing? So this isn't our typical sort of SEJ show. We decided to have a little fun here because for us all metalheads, we love metal for many years, and we also love SEO and search marketing and all things search. So we figured, why not put the two together, sort of putting together some of the correlations, and we all love that term for between metal and SEO. And yeah, it turns out there's a lot. We have a lot to cover, so let's kick off. So one thing we wanted to talk about first was the correlation between metal and productivity at work. So I want to read a quick little thing that I found from Loudwire, so just bear with me for a second, and then we'll talk about it. So a Stack Overflow study found that metal, including black and death metal, are popular genres, especially in coding, because it improves productivity and focus. Pandora developer Rob Whitlock said the following: "When I hear clean singing, my brain starts tracking what they're saying, and it's distracting. But with death metal vocals, it's just sound. You don't think about what they're saying, so it just sort of fades into the background." So he also said one of his tips was, if I'm going to be doing a task for a long time, I'll put black metal on, especially if it's something I'm sad about doing. I love that. Black metal is emotionally evocative in a way that death metal isn't. There are times when you're coding and you sort of need that emotion. So yeah, let's open the discussion there. How have you all found metal to help productivity and focus, and has it for you? Navah, do you want to kick us off maybe?
Sure. So it's actually really funny. If my day doesn't start with a very specific mix of what I call power songs, I am stressed out the entire day. I very specifically need at least 90 minutes of listening to songs. I'm a little bit different than the study. I actually need really pretty clean vocals. So I'm the other side of metal. But yeah, if I don't begin my day with that 90 minutes, not only am I not as productive, I tend to lose even more hours out of what I can do creative analytical tasks. So my mornings tend to be very focused on creating content for public speaking, thought leadership, but then also for client accounts, the ones that are a little bit trickier. And I'll put those in the morning when I'm listening to that music, starting my day off well. If, however, I have a lot of back-to-back calls or a lot of back-to-back meetings and I can't recharge with a song in between, every subsequent meeting gets worse and worse and worse. Every subsequent task gets worse and worse and worse. So it's I don't want to say something as trite as saying listening to music is as important to me as oxygen, but at least for my mental health and my productivity, it's very close there.
Cool. John, how about you?
So metal's kind of like my secret weapon when working, because I tend to listen to a lot of different things while I'm working, and I definitely have like severe tinnitus and ADHD. So that combined, I have to have some kind of external stimulus outside of work.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, metal does two things. One, I do like the concept of, I never thought about it that way, but the concept of like, not listening to the vocals or the lyrics so much. But to me, it's more of the rhythmic. When you have a really good breakdown or a fast section, it really makes me feel like I'm in a flow, and it helps trigger my brain into a faster way of thinking. So I'm a little bit sharper. And I think especially if I have a big pitch or I'm making a big audit where I really need to display confidence, it helps give me that confidence whenever I'm working.
Awesome. Jesse.
And see, that's what's interesting for me. I actually feel like music is as important as oxygen to me. Like I need it to get through the day.
All right,
it's been that way for a really long time for me.
Mm-hmm.
So an example of the productivity thing that I've had from a couple years ago, it's really interesting. I got a buddy into the band Animals as Leaders, which is a very progressive instrumental band. And he was all about them, listening to them like crazy whenever he would work. And I would try, but I wouldn't be able to focus. I was always paying more attention to like what the music was doing. And I kind of determined that it was because it was instrumental. So I started working on a WooCommerce site that I had to like edit very heavily. And I found that the thing that kept me going was listening to Dillinger Escape Plan on repeat. And if you haven't heard Dillinger Escape Plan, they kind of fall into this progressive mathcore type thing, which is very dissonant and chaotic. Listening to the song Milk Lizard, Black Bubblegum, and Prancer on repeat got me through 2 weeks of editing that WooCommerce site. Anything else I listened to, I would not focus. It was weird. And if you go listen to them, it's weird that it worked for me. But for some reason, that chaos gets me. It keeps everything out of my head and lets me focus on one thing. I listen to it when I go to sleep. Same thing. That's how I fall asleep, is listening to something like that, because it narrows my focus.
Mm-hmm.
So I find productivity big time when I'm listening to crazy, chaotic metal.
Mm-hmm. I found the same too. Oh, sorry. Just a really quick thing.
No, I had my turn. No, go on.
Oh yeah. I just wanted to say I had this really funny situation a couple weeks ago. So I had this like jackhammering noise outside of my my other office before I moved, and it was so distracting to me. So what do? I put on Nails. And Jesse, you know the Nails. It's like basically hardcore grind sort of music, and yeah, it's just like put on "You'll Never Be One of Us." I could concentrate. That's such a weird like little thing. Like any person who doesn't maybe listen to metal won't get that. Like it just sounds like noise to them, but there's really that rhythm, like John was saying, and you're saying, Jesse. It's very much there. It just sort of really gets my focus into and helps me be more productive. So Navah, please.
Well, so what I was going to say is on the vocal piece, I actually think this is interesting. What unlocks our productivity? So for me, I have to listen, and I listen to it on repeat. Battle Beasts, Beyond Burning Skies. It's just this profound, powerful female vocal, epic instrumentals. It's just profound and amazing and wonderful. But when I need to just like do grunt work, and I feel ridiculous about this. There's a song, Dragon Grail. It basically sounds like a train, just chug 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 chug. But task dependent songs, I think, are important. That like that this song at this point will do well for me. This song is slightly different. And my Pandora station, I've had the same Pandora station for like 17 years. It has 17 years of data of knowing when I'm in what space. And I'll actually, a lot of people abandon Pandora, but I can't abandon that station because it knows when to put on my death metal and when to put on the melodic, epic symphonic metal and when to go like, let's just be pirates with Ailstorm, and things like that.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's really interesting because I know I definitely have one other mood I get in is where you're like so burnt out and your brain's just not working anymore. And for me, I've got the playlist of throwback metal. For some reason, the nostalgia metal for me really works. So I got Metallica, all of that older stuff. It's really, for me, it's like, oh, I haven't listened to this in like 10 years. So for some reason, it's making me focus and more alive again.
Yep.
See, for me, it's all mood based, and really the commonality is that it has to have vocals. So it really depends on what I'm kind of feeling at the time. So lately, it's been a lot of like Japanese bands, which can get a little bizarre. So something like a baby metal, or more of that kawaii metal stuff. But then you also have like a really crazy band like Maximum the Hormone, where they're almost like a death metal punk ska band that then has really cute stuff in the middle of it too. But then, next week it might be, okay, just blast a bunch of Cannibal Corpse or Mayhem or something. So for me, it's all mood based. As long as there's vocals, I'm good.
Sure. Awesome. All right. Well, we're off to a good topic. Good discussion on that topic, but let's something else, which was loyalty. We talked about this a little bit before we got on the air, but it's like everybody wants a loyal fan base. And I think metal fans are some of the most loyal people that you'll find. So just for an example, so let's go around here. How long have you been all listening to metal? Like how long? When did you start? I think I started at age 10 or 11. I don't know. What about the rest of you?
I mean, how broad of metal are we talking about? Just anything that could be slightly considered metal?
Yeah, anything you would consider metal, yeah.
Day one. My dad was a huge like hair metal and like 90s metal guy, and like going to kindergarten listening to like Korn or something like that.
So it's kind of the same boat for me. My dad literally played Master of Puppets on my mom's belly when she was pregnant with me.
Wow.
I'm really jealous.
I did that for joy, by the way.
That's amazing.
So I mean, like, I came out pretty into metal, but growing up, it wasn't cool to like metal, so I kind of shied away from it until about around the age of 10, probably, when like I was getting into like Korn and stuff like that, and then it progressed from there. So it's kind of been a lifelong thing, but it was kind of hidden away for the first little chunk of my life.
Sure.
I'll put it at around 13. What's interesting, if I look back at the music that I was really into when I was younger, I look at my mind like to make myself a bit of a martyr, and kind of like seeking out like, oh, the world is terrible, blah, blah, blah. I can't solve any of these problems. And so there's a lot of gloom and doom. Was very much into the goth angle of metal. Not that saying that goth is inherently gloom and doom all the time. It definitely has a very specific, it has an angle. And what's interesting, even on the subject of loyalty, while I am undoubtedly a steadfast, loyal metal fan, the flexibility of perspective, like the bands I would seek out when I was first starting on the journey of metal versus the bands I actively seek out now are very, very different. And while there are some like Maiden, Metallica that are just have always been there, there are others that really mark a pivot to chasing growth over celebrating weakness, and celebrating like, why is the world terrible? And so that for me was more, it's interesting seeing what bands appeal to what angles of our psyche. Going back to Jesse's point about mood.
Yep. So what do you think it is about metal in particular that inspires that loyalty, and how can we sort of use that knowledge in what we do in SEO and marketing?
There's a story in a lot of songs that speaks to something greater than ourselves. If we can be the champion that vanquishes evil, if we can be the devil calling in the seventh son of the seventh son, like if we can harness all of that power, there's something very special about that. And the gift of metal is that it makes that accessible to not just one person, it makes it accessible to all. So translating that to marketing, how do we identify the personas that will best identify with the message that we're trying to put out there, and modify it so that it speaks to the correct user? Like Metallica did a cover of Pokemon. That is the exact kind of content that you would want to put in front of a kid to get them hooked on Metallica and follow that trajectory, as opposed to exposing them to, I don't know, like One. It's a slower song. Like it's
Sure.
going to be more difficult for a kid who's very energetic. I mean, there's exceptions always, but to get them into it. So
I
just
like that point,
understanding
yeah.
your messaging.
Yep.
And see, that's what's interesting about a lot of metal bands, and especially early to mid 2000s, a lot of them were, especially in the new wave of American metal, so bands like Lamb of God and Trivium and Unearth and bands like that, and Killswitch Engage, they were all trying to do new stuff every time they would put out a new album. So Killswitch would evolve in between albums. Trivium would go between different vocal styles. While that's a lot of technique-based issues, they would constantly change stylings. So you're having this progression constantly, but the focus on quality is always there. That kind of translates back to what you're trying to do with, anything related to search, especially when it's content related. You're always looking to evolve, but you have to make sure the quality's there. Because if the quality's not there, then it's not going to resonate with people. The bands that are still around today, while they might have progressed, even like we were talking about in the green room earlier, Opeth, completely different band than they were 10, 15 years ago, but their music's still good. So if you like the band, more than likely you still like them. While nothing will ever be Blackwater Park, it's still kind of cool to see them try to become a Pink Floyd cover band. Let's just say it. But yeah, I mean, so it's always evolving and making sure the quality's there.
Awesome. Sure.
I mean, we're still on loyalty, right?
Yep.
I mean, I think it's really interesting to me, the bands that you liked and then didn't like based on social norms. Like I remember growing up, like really liking certain bands, and like some people are like, oh, that's not cool to like. And so like, I guess when you're younger, you're like, okay, so I should probably not like that band anymore. And when you get older, you're like, why the hell did I stop listening to that band? They're so great. Like I saw Keith Good in the comments bring up Cradle of Filth. And I was like, I remember listening to that in like high school. And then like, someone's like, really? That black metal stuff? That's weird. And then I come back and I'm like, that was a good song. What am I talking about? So you got to be loyal to what you like.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the big thing is, knowing your audience and knowing when it's okay to do that evolution. Like you were saying, Jesse, it's like, I don't think they could have gone from, Blackwater Park to the Pink Floyd. Like there was a transition there, and I assume that they felt like their audience was ready for that. So I don't know. Yeah.
I'll be a loyal diehard Opeth fan till I die. I will make fun of them in the process, but will always be a loyal fan.
Right. Yeah, because they gave you great memories. There's the whole emotional attachment there.
They're the band that brought me into a deeper metal side. Because to me, I was always like the melodic vocals. I couldn't do growling. I didn't think I thought it was dumb. Until someone goes, no, it's good. I'm like, no, it's not. So it says, here, listen to Deliverance. And then I saw and that, to me, that was like that mid-level blending. And that song brought me into this whole other side of metal, into European metal and all of that.
There's there's a point about cost that I wish I had made earlier. When I first moved to Boston, this is where I really launched my career in digital marketing. There was an opportunity to see Camelot. And it was a $20 cover. Nothing to see Camelot. Like that's cheap. And I would have been like right up front. There were no seats, just like go do it. And I hated myself every day that I passed on that because I felt that was too expensive. And recently I was able to see Camelot in concert, ironically with Sonata Arctica and Battle Beast, the same show. And it was this profound experience realizing that just because you can't always engage in the product itself, there is value in the aspirational brand loyalists. So I know we're here to talk about search, but there is something to be said for how do we communicate to our consumers and instill the desire to be a consumer, even if they can't be yet. Like set them on that stage where when they are in a position to become a customer, they 1000% will choose us every single time and will long to become our customer, as opposed to saying, nope, one and done. Because there were a ton of metal shows I went to just while I was in college, and I would be very hard pressed to tell you who they were. Whereas the bands that there was like $5 cover, I'm in, you got my money, great. Whereas the bands that I religiously listen to, I will go out of my way, seek out that experience, and pay that premium because they mean the world to me. They mean the world to be part of that community. So in terms of content, in terms of marketing efforts, like how we can inspire that loyalty, do initiatives that are not just about transactional leads and sales, but actually begin tying that value back to any of our organic efforts, any of our social efforts, and really enjoy that full picture.
Absolutely. Awesome. All right. Let's switch gears. Let's talk controversy. And Jesse is, of course, wearing the perfect shirt. So we talk about controversy and metal, a mayhem shirt. Probably, would we consider them the most notorious band in black metal history, possibly?
Probably. I mean, they
yeah.
basically made it up, and their stories at this point so expanded and lied about and everything that, yeah, they probably are the most controversial band ever.
Yeah.
So much mythology behind it now, too.
Yeah. Yeah, they've created like this whole mythology around band, which is it's pretty impressive. Like it just grows and like does its own thing. None of it's canon, but you know.
I mean, brands can do the same thing too. If you can create a brand mythology and things like that, like I think Disney's a good one. There's a whole lot of controversy and mythology behind Walt Disney himself. Yet they still are on top. But, yeah.
Absolutely.
And speaking to the times that we live in, no matter what side you come out on, you will be controversial in your opinion to the other side. And it's kind of understanding, do I care that there's controversy? Like, is my core customer going to care that I'm being anti-racist, that I'm being pro-choice, that I'm being fill in the blank? Sorry if this is now getting political. I will shut that politics down. But that's in terms of controversy. The band that comes to my mind is actually Ghost. Interesting vocals, like interesting sound. He basically has the entire band enslaved. Yet we all go and cheer on those songs because of course we do. And it's just, at what point is controversy useful, and it's sharpening kind of that edge in marketing, that edge in content, versus what is just terrible? Like you deserve to be run through the mud for this life choice.
I've got a good one. Okay. So I assume when you say that he has the band enslaved, you mean the nameless ghouls, the rest of the band that aren't the lead singer, that basically are not under a record deal. They're not under a contract. They're basically a studio band that plays with him. Originally, it was the band, but they all left and sued the crap out of him back in Sweden. And especially because of their subject matter, it's easy to say, oh, they're great, but Tobias Forge has created this really strange thing and he doesn't treat their members right. That happens more than you realize, but it's really easy to talk about Ghost because they're Ghost. Paramore, same thing. Hayley Williams is the only one signed out of that entire band, but because they're so poppy and fun, no one ever talks about that. Bon Jovi is the same way. John Bon Jovi is the only one with a record deal. But again, because Ghost has the crazy satanic element and do all their weird, awesome music, it's so easy to keep that dialogue going. And the same happens with brands. All brands to some degree are going to be controversial, but the ones that are really controversial and have kind of a weird edginess to them, it's easy to keep that conversation going about them.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and I know we don't want to get too political, but we're in that environment where it's like you're basically going to upset half the people. I think Starbucks, like no matter what they do, they're pissing off half their audience, whether it's their Christmas cups or they won't support like T-shirts for Black Lives Matter. you can think of like Nike with their Colin Kaepernick association. So it's basically just a question of knowing your audience and will enough of them stick around, and do you care if maybe you upset a few people? So that's always the question you have to measure.
Or if you're Chick-fil-A and you can't pick a side.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. That's another one. So yeah, lots of controversy, but yeah. All right, so we'll move on. We wanted to talk about duplicate content, and this was a Navah suggestion. So we're going to talk about duplicate content, but what
I
we
did a
mean by
bunch
this,
of research ahead of this.
Oh, good. Okay. So in music, what we call duplicate content in the SEO world is called a cover song. And as we know, like not all duplicate content is bad, but most of it's pretty terrible. And in the metal world, not all covers are bad, but a lot are pretty terrible. So I figured we could start there. I wanted to kick off with the worst first. So who wants to kick us off on what are some of the worst duplicate content cover metal songs that you've heard?
I gotta go ahead, Navah. I know you're excited.
No, go. I've gone ahead the first time every time. It's
We'll go, John.
okay.
Okay, it's one of my favorite bad ones. It's Children of Bodom, Oops, I Did It Again.
That song's awesome.
It's so good.
That song's so awesome.
It's bad, but it's so good.
Awesome.
I don't know.
I'm gonna get lampooned for this. I'm very confident about it, but I actually hate the Disturbed "The Sound of Silence" cover. I think it sounds terrible. It's so bad. There was no reason for them to cover that song. Jesse's laughing because he knows I actually like them kind of, and they're
I love that band.
Debatable. It's a debatable opinion to think that Disturbed is good, but specifically the cover is. So that goes back to that point about there's certain sounds will go well with certain types of music, and that band was not meant to sing that song. I am sorry. It is a mistake.
I think it's also some people are wired different to enjoy different things. Like I like my wife and I will have like the same type of music style, but if someone's voice is a little bit grungy or a little bit different and not super clean, it just with her wiring doesn't work and she can't listen to it. So like I actually like that cover, but for you probably just whatever your wiring is just can't stand it.
I can't. And it's actually the same thing with so this was funny. I posted A Demon's Fate by Within Temptation, and I forget who, but someone called out that Nightcore was the original, but the Within Temptation one came out first. In my opinion, it's superior, but depending on which content you're exposed to first, you'll be predisposed to think this versus this. And so that's like
interesting.
That was one of the things I was hoping we could talk about on the duplicate content piece is there is a lot of risk about coming out just after an original post is put out, because you're going to get lampooned. And the trust factors are absolutely going to go out the window there. So yeah, even though Demon's Fate is a great song, Within Temptation's version is a superior version. Like, of course, should not have covered it. Her voice does not sound nearly as polished.
There's always one or two people in the digital marketing realm who cover content like that. And even though they may have big followings, we all know most of it's taken.
Anyway.
Jesse, did you have any picks?
Mine is a little inverted from everyone's, but I can't help but think back to the MTV Icon episode of Metallica with Avril Lavigne trying to do Fuel.
Oh my God.
I haven't seen that.
I forgot about that.
It's the worst. It's
we blocked
so
it.
bad. Oh my God.
Looking it up.
It's so bad.
Need the Men in Black mind wipe for that.
Yeah. And I mean, it was a good attempt. I mean, she tried, and that was in that kind of phase of, is she pop? Is she punk? What's going on? And she really tried to do it, but it just didn't work. So, I mean, that sometimes you find, especially in SEO, where there's duplicating or quoting things tends to have a good intent behind it, but it just doesn't work. So I don't know. I like covers, but at the same time, some of them just don't work.
I don't know if this counts. I remember some things in SEO sometimes work really well. And I remember one time I was on a podcast and someone asked me who to follow, and I'm like, I'll just tweet it later. So I tweeted like 10 names of people who I think people should follow. And then inadvertently, I got a ton of followers for that, which is not the intention at all. It was just kind of a weird outcome.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
But
It's kindness. It's the kindness factor. You're putting good into the world, and people are seeing that you should do that.
Yeah. Speaking of, you can maybe think about it, Jesse. It's not metal, but if you ever look at Puddle of Mud covering Nirvana, that's one of the worst things I've ever heard. It's like cringe factor. It's like She Bang, William Hunt kind of level stuff. Yeah.
Awesome. So I had a couple. One was, and I hope Jesse won't kill me for this one. I'm curious to see what you think of it. Kill Switch Engage. Do you know what song I'm gonna say? Holy Diver.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that was my other pick.
Okay.
I love that cover. The video's great.
I like it, but that is what got everyone into them, and that's the only thing that anyone would play by them. It's like that's the worst song on that album.
Oh yeah,
it is. Yep. Yeah. That's interesting though. I didn't realize that's how people got into that. That's interesting. A lot of my friends actually. Yeah. Yeah.
You need that gateway song.
Yeah.
And I appreciate a good gateway song, but
yeah.
Not that one.
Also, I have one I just have to mention. I don't know if you guys all know this, the 6 Feet Under Graveyard Classics. Are you familiar with this? Where the 6 Feet Under is like a death metal band, the former Cannibal Corpse singer. You know, he had like covers of California, Uber Alice, Purple Haze, Smoke on the Water as death metal versions. It was so terrible. They should have paid us to listen to that. So, yeah.
6 Feet Under in general is kind of a
just generally, but that you know, there's Hitting Bottom, and then there's that album, which is like I don't even know. That's below. So yeah, they managed to dig deeper. But yeah, so that's an interesting discussion. So we should flip it because there are some good metal covers out there, and it was interesting, Navah, how you were saying, you know, it depends what you hear first. So I had a really great example of that, which is Metallica. Like, Am I Evil? Like, I heard that song before I heard Diamond Head. Which both are good, but I think Metallica's is better. And I now wonder, do I like that better because I heard it first, or is it actually better?
It's just better.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just
we'll probably all vote for that. We all voting for Metallica's version. Yeah. Am I Evil? Okay.
But Diamond Head is great.
It is. Yes. They were great. But yeah, anyone else have some favorites?
So
I've got a repurposing one. Oh no, go ahead, Jesse.
No. I have a zinger. Go for it. You go first.
So one of my favorite bands, Powerwolf, for many reasons, actually included the covers of two female led bands, Epica and Amaranthine, on their CD because they were such good examples of taking the core but then applying it in the band style. So that was kind of when I originally sent this topic about duplicate content versus repurposing content. A good cover should repurpose it, but it's ultimately still something new and unique. So Sacred and Wild by Epica is undoubtedly an Epica song, even though the lyrics and the core is still the original. Same thing with Army of the Night that Amaranthine did for Powerwolf. And just in terms of sound, that is kind of how we do that parallel between marketing versus metal. When you're thinking about that content piece, and you need to repurpose that content, maybe it's taking content that did really well, super high conversion rates, turns into a Facebook Live weekly conversation so that you can keep it top of mind for folks, and not just taking that same content and hitting the same channel again and again and again. So that was the marketing and metal point I wanted to make. Go ahead, Jesse.
Awesome.
So my favorite metal cover is going back to Children of Bodom because they loved doing covers for a while. Their cover of Creedence Clearwater Revival's "Looking Out My Back Door" is amazing.
Whoa, I did not know that.
There's a video for it and everything. It's great. They do such a good job of covering that song, but adding their own fun flair to it. It's fantastic. Now, Navah brought something up, and it's not necessarily metal, but an example I've had for years on intent, because intent is so important when it comes to ranking content in search. This is where it's going to get weird for me. If you know me, Taylor Swift's 1989 album is wonderful. It's such a good album. But then you get Ryan Adams covering the entire album and adding his own flair, and it's basically an entirely different thing, but it's the same music. That's so good, but it shows how intent can change everything. And honestly, I got into the Taylor Swift album because of the Ryan Adams album. So when you're doing content, don't cover necessarily what someone else has done. Expand on it, make it your own. And that's where you'll really succeed.
Yep.
100%.
Yep. Yeah, and I had another one that was one of my all-time favorites, just in terms of taking someone else's piece of art and making it your own versus just doing a really bad cover. Going old school, Typo Negative did this amazing cover of Black Sabbath's Black Sabbath. Mm-hmm. They made it totally their own. It's amazing. If you haven't heard it, check it out. But yeah, if you're gonna cover something, whether it's content or music, make it your own, put it in your voice, your style. Don't just try to be the same thing that's already out there, because it's pointless and it usually comes out terribly. And I had another one, which was, since we're sort of the tie-in, which was actually would be like a content refresh where bands sort of cover themselves and made it better, in my opinion. Was Suicidal Tendencies Institutionalized. They released it way back, and then they covered it bunch of years later. I prefer the later version myself. I don't know if everyone would agree with that, because some people prefer the old one, but yeah, like that's just your case. If you want to refresh your content, do it better, the next time.
Yeah. Depends on how much we want a Pepsi at the time.
Oh yes, absolutely. All I wanted was a Pepsi.
I feel like we need like a Spotify or YouTube playlist to keep up with all the things we're mentioning. Do we have a scribe here?
Yep.
Yeah, the takeaway from this video is gonna we'll have our YouTube playlist, or like all the
we have to add that now for sure. Cool. John, did you have any other? I'm not sure if we did your cover song that you love. Do you have any examples or anything popped to mind for you?
Not really. I mean, like,
no. Okay.
Yeah, not really. No.
All right. No
you
worries.
Also like Taylor Swift, don't you? I'm just don't.
I'm still in the closet about my Taylor Swift love.
I'll back you up, Jesse. That was a solid album. So there you go. All right, so we're almost at the midway point, so I figure this would be time for a fun question. Doesn't really have anything to do with anything, but I want to ask everybody, if you could start a band that had a search, SEO, PPC marketing, whatever sort of theme, what would your band name be? What would your album be? What genre? Anything you want to say? And I don't know, Jesse, do you want to go first with that one?
Oh, that one's hard, because you kind of take what you've done with Search and Destroy and almost want to do something like Rank 'Em All, do like a Metallica tribute or something.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I like that.
I'm gonna go with Rank 'Em All.
Cool. All right, John, what do you got? I know I still, and by the way, we should say from the start that I did not intentionally steal this title of Search and Destroy from John, but I posted the link to this Facebook Live, and then John messaged me and goes, "Dude, that was my title."
that was my album name. So
that was your album name, right?
Yeah, my band would be a jazz death metal band. So very technical.
Nice.
They would be called Doombots.txt. And then
nice. Okay.
And then the feature album is going to be Page 2.
I like it. All right. Nice. Navah, what do you got?
So I need to give shout outs to my brother is actually in the chat, and he came up with SEO headbangers, which would be great if I was an SEO. And Dave Davies has a clutch one that I'm not going to take credit for, but it depends.
It's so good.
It's really good.
So good.
And I am ashamed I didn't think of it, and that's fine. Mine actually is more Sith than metal, which would be Path to Power. Because I often think about when we're thinking about PPC, a lot of times it's about understanding the brand, but also understanding what are the different ways that people will think about a service, making sure that it's exactly in the right way. And so I often refer, we're on the path to profit and victory. So path to power, because I honestly couldn't think of something fun and technical
I like it.
in
It
the
worked for me.
time frame we were given that I was
Sure.
excited about.
I know.
I stayed up all night.
But Dave Davies, it depends. Like, all
Yeah,
right,
perfect.
you
I'm
win.
just joining Dave's
You
band.
win.
Yeah.
Seriously,
Hey,
yeah.
We're
Navah
all
and-
joining Dave.
I
We're all
think you could
shutting
totally
down.
do a PPC album for It Depends, but your album cover has to be shopping ads for diapers, adult diapers, dependent diapers. That way
Nice.
it ties in.
There you go.
Mm.
No, Nava's not out with that. Okay. Cool. All right, so I had mine. So I'm not sure if this is lame or cool, so you guys got to tell me. So I was thinking in terms of like HTML errors. So I came up with a new one, a new code, which was 666 error. And the title name would be No God Found for the first
I like
dig
that
it.
a
That's
lot.
heavy.
That's really good.
That's
There you
really
go.
good.
I would
That's-
also join that band.
And I came up with two other alternates today as I was just thinking through heavy metadata
That's good.
or heavy meta or
That's
heavy
a
meta
genre.
description.
That's a
Yeah.
genre of
Yeah.
Oh,
music.
there we go. There we go.
Meta-head.
Danny Goodwin launching an entire new genre of
There
music.
we go. All right, we got to do this. We got to band together at the next next show or
Next
all that.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll just do a jam session at PubCon or whatever.
I'm
Awesome. All right, so that was fun. Cool. So let's get back to so this is fun. So I was doing more research, so I want to read you a little bit and we'll talk about it. So this is from Neuroscience News. So research has shown that fans tend to be more open to new experiences, and we're talking about metal fans here, open to new experiences, which manifests itself in preferring music that is intense, complex, and unconventional, alongside a negative attitude toward institutional authority. Looking further into the differences between heavy metal fans and non-fans, research has shown that fans tend to be more open to new experiences, which manifests itself in preferring music that is intense, complex, and unconventional alongside. So, yeah, basically the idea there is, if you're into metal, and this is important in marketing too, it's like you don't want to just be rehashing the same old ideas. You want to think in new ways, maybe more complex, have more complex thinking. So I want to talk, let's turn it over to you guys. Any reactions to sort of that thinking? Do you find that you're more able to have complex thinking, just think more outside the box in terms of your SEO work?
I think so, but for me, I think it doesn't necessarily come back to my music, unless it kind of does, because it's kind of connected. But it goes back to me for my my design background. Like going to school for design really triggered something in me on thinking in a different way that I found extremely beneficial to my SEO career. But simultaneously, I got into design because Mike D from Killswitch Engage is a graphic designer. I thought that was insanely cool that he got to do art for bands, and I wanted to do that too. So I went to school for it and then became an SEO. So realistically, I guess they do connect. So yeah, I would say that that critical thinking that comes from listening to something more complex probably does play a part in my ability to think outside of the box and a little bit differently when I'm doing SEO.
My knee-jerk reaction to this is actually we're the ones that are open to testing new and exciting campaign types. And so what's kind of interesting is if you look at some practitioners, they want a set of rules. This is the set of rules of how it will always be forever and ever. Don't tell me that anything has changed. I learned it once, and this is the way it goes. And one of the things, I don't know whether metal is influence this at all in me, but one of the things I've enjoyed about our industry is that I can never get complacent. My mind always has to be searching out the next new thing. I can never say I know exactly what the answer is. I can say, based off of the data I've seen, this seems correct. Let's test. Dave with his "it depends," but that is at the heart of, I think, what makes us good at what we do is that we're open to being wrong and learning from that failure and learning from that data and turning it into something new, as opposed to being completely risk averse, staying complacent. The other piece, and I'm just thinking actually about my own team. I gravitate towards, we'll call the way I put it earlier today was a pack of like mythical superstars. Like I don't want like someone who's really good. I want a dragon to go join my team and just like blow everyone out of the water. Like I'm not happy unless I have someone who is just as dynamic and able to adapt as I am. But that's not the working environment. That's not the way that every mind can work. I think the reason I enjoy metal so much is that and John, you mentioned this point earlier, is that it kind of activates that way of thinking. And it's I don't want to say it's an addiction, but I mean, Jesse and I were talking about how like listening to music is just as important as breathing. I think being on that train of thought encourages more profit, encourages more testing, and that puts us in a position to then serve our clients better than those that only will do things the way that they were initially taught.
No, I have a question for you.
Sure.
To me, I've always thought metal was an interesting collaboration between both sides of the brain because it's very technical.
1000%.
Yeah, and I feel like it's oftentimes in PPC more than SEO. I think sometimes it's a lot more data focused, and then how do you get creative with that data? Do you feel like those go hand in hand?
So on the paid side, 1000%. It's interesting as metrics have evolved. The bar used to be, let's get the lowest cost per clicks that we possibly can. Then let's get the lowest cost per acquisition. Then let's get the best ROAS. We're not going to talk about quality score. We'll put that in a bucket over to the side. If people are interested, you can read the SCJ, how to get a perfect quality score. And you can see all of my wonderful feelings about it. But in terms of analyzing the data, there were actually some really, really clever comments. I'm now just plugging my own content, but it was an SCJ like, we call your bluff. And actually, I think Jesse and John, I don't know if you were in it, but we'll have to do another round. But specifically the story and the data, like we're able to process the story and the data as opposed to just being raw numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Did that answer your question, or is that just me rambling and ranting?
No, it's a little bit of both too, because like we've actually completely revamped the way we do reporting too. It's no longer like looking at data dashboards. Now we take Data Studio and we do like almost like a slide presentation where we import your data, but we try to like tell an actual story with it. So what are we working on? What's going on? And so that way people can look at the numbers and analyze it, but they're not getting bored just thinking of one side of their brain. They're getting to see that story, what we do, and they seem to be way more engaged.
Reporting is the concept album.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There you go.
What kind of views, what kind of dashboards do you do in Data Studio?
So I mean, we combine.
What are your favorite ones?
What do you mean? Like what connectors?
Yeah, and like what views do you find are the most helpful?
So we do a lot of what's it called? Content drill downs, especially when I'm doing research. So I'll say, okay, here are your top keywords, or here are your top landing pages. Now let's drill down to see what keywords those are ranking for and what data that's connecting, so we can connect Search Console and analytics. So we can say, yeah, this page may get like a lot of sessions and rank for a lot of keywords, but this one has a higher conversion rate. So we know it works well. So let's look at what keywords they're ranking for or not, etc. But yeah, looking into different drill downs, different exploratory graphs. There's a lot of great community connectors out there and community charts out there that we can look at that. I'm really big on data visualization. I've done a lot of articles with, relatively a lot of articles at Search Engine Journal about data visualization with Python or with some other keyword research, and plugging myself now. But like anytime, kind of, to be fair, I work with some of the most brilliant minds in data visualization that I've ever worked with at Cardinal. And so I've noticed that clients are way more receptive to any kind of visualization that way, and beyond the typical line chart graph. But Data Studio definitely has some of the best tools out there for that.
Cool. All right. We'll move along. I wanted to continue on from that article because it also talked about how metal can help your mental health. So it's the article again. Same research suggests that it may be that listening to music is cathartic. Another finding is that fans who were made angry and then listened to heavy metal music did not increase their anger, but increased their positive emotions, which suggests that listening to extreme music represents a healthy and functional way of processing anger. What do we think about that? I've definitely found that to be true. You know, I'm in a bad mood, stuff's going wrong, just crank up some jams and yeah, blast the bad mood away. Do you guys feel the same?
Oh yeah, I've noticed like the mood like definitely decrease. Like you're almost like it matches your intensity pretty right off the bat, and then you kind of like calm down gradually, and before you know it, you're in a better mood. Yeah, 100%.
I'm 100% that way.
Yep.
No More Lies is that song for me. If I need by Maiden, the reason that song serves so well is it actually honors that you might be stressed, and it has those ebbs and flows so that you're able to come back to a healthy neutral. Like there are some songs I listen to that just from 0 to 11 and that's where you stay. The songs that really serve that purpose are the ones that take you on a journey, both in the story and then also audio.
That's a good point. Yeah, I do like the idea of ebbs and flows to make sure it kind of regulates your emotions. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
That's Opeth for me. That long form Pink Floyd story.
Yep. Yep. Easy to get lost in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bad mood, like Jesse's t-shirt there, Mayhem. Every once in a while, I just need that getting the right frame set. But yeah.
Oh yeah.
That or folk metal. Folk metal is amazing at diffusing a bad mood. It's so hard to be in a bad mood while you're basically listening to a metal polka. I challenge you to be in a bad mood while listening to a metal polka.
See, I have to go more aggressive. Like there was one time when I just started the first SEO job I'd ever had. An employee had to be let go, and he had screwed up a bunch of stuff, and we had to go in and do it, and I was able to fix it. So it's kind of putting my foot in the door a little bit more and gaining some trust. But I closed the door to the office I was in, threw on Meshuggah Obzin, and was like, trust me, I know you don't know me. I know this is weird. I will fix this. Hold on. And 30 minutes later, all was good. And that like really grounded me. But that is an aggressive album. And I was in a way better mood after that, fixed everything, and all was good. So I don't know, folk metal, I that never brings me back to neutral. It's strange.
It depends on which you listen to. So like there's Eluvite, and what's it called? I'm going to totally butcher the pronunciation, but Corpacani, where there's like a little bit more growl, but then there's also and I'm of course not prepared, and I can never remember all of the different ones, but In Extremo is a good one. They're Germans, but a lot of it's very Scottish Gaelic mythology. I don't know. You might enjoy it. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I like tears, so we'll be good.
Can I pose a question to everyone?
Go for it.
Navah, you made me think. You said like we talked about regulating emotions, things like that, but you also mentioned some bands just go 0 to 11. If you're in a mood and like you need that 0 to 11 band or song, what is it?
Beyond Burning Skies, Battle Beast, beyond a shadow of a doubt, or we'll say Vespertine by Camelot.
You're gonna need to send me those. I don't know those songs.
For me, if it's a particularly bad thing that I need to kind of emotionally come down from, anything Cannibal Corpse will work. I can't say any of those song titles, but anything by them would be fantastic. If it's has a really good build up, No Stars Over Bethlehem by Protest the Hero, because that song has a really kind of almost THX intro and then just kicks into high gear, and that always just gets everything going for me the right way. So those are my picks.
Nice. I would go with a little Strapping Young Lad.
Oh,
You need something pretty intense to just go from 0 to probably like 20. But yeah, like I just throw an Alien, the whole album. So
Perfect album.
Yeah. Aside from like
I'm
that,
actually-
that electronic track at the end, I just skipped that. But yeah, everything else is just like perfect.
So I'm going to take advantage of the fact that this group is together, and we're all speakers. What's your pre-talk song? Like, what's the song that you listen to just before you get on stage to get all jazzed up?
It's not metal, believe it or not.
Really?
No.
What is it?
It's Wolfpack.
Okay.
They're just like a modern funk band, and like all their songs are super positive and upbeat and happy. And usually I try to get into that kind of mood. And metal's more of my everyday, like working or talking to a client music.
For me, I honestly, anytime I've ever spoken, I never listened to anything beforehand. So realistically, the music that would probably get me into a talk would be the voices of Topher Cohen, Keith Good, Greg Gifford, Kevin Dory, or Damon Gochner, or Matt Siltala, or Melissa Foch. That would probably be it for me. I'd never listen to anything right before I speak. Then I'll just have the song stuck in my head. I've had Prancer stuck in my head the entire time we've been talking today.
Yeah, I'm pretty much like Jesse. I don't remember ever doing that before a talk. I probably couldn't like name a song that I would listen to. It'd probably be like Corrosion of Conformity's Vote with a Bullet. That would just like get me, boom, ready to go. But yeah, I've never actually done that before, Joe. What about you?
So I alternate between Ailstorm, either Drink or Keelhauled, or I'll do Battle Beast. I usually don't do Beyond Burning Skies because then I get too excited and then I speak too fast, which I always speak too fast anyway. But I'll do Raise Your Fist or King for a Day, because they're, and actually this is similar to John. I like things that are sing-songy. Like it's almost it's listening to something that will get me prepared to speak in a way that I'm not going like 50 miles an hour or 50 miles a minute or something.
I just thought of one other one. I'm not sure if you guys would technically consider it metal. Fight Song by Marilyn Manson is a good song to get hyped up to.
Yes. We should have brought him up on the controversial topic too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
He's been riding that train for like almost 20 years.
Yeah.
You got to have a shtick, man.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Cool. All right. What else do we want to talk about? International metal. So we wanted to talk in this a little bit in terms of, obviously internationally, it's not obviously the world's getting smaller now, but in the heyday, especially like you'd have your bands from all the Scandinavian countries with their black metal that they'd be known for that. You'd have like Sepultura coming from the south. I don't know, like how go ahead, John.
I got a good one. When I think of SEO and international, right now, other than the US, I think of like, when I think of like countries known for their SEO, I really think about Spain, UK, Germany, and sometimes France. And I know those ones mostly just because I know of speakers or contributors who write in those countries. It's mostly where that's coming from for me. But also in metal, you have, like you were saying, like the countries that are known for specific subgenres of metal.
Sure.
Specifically around Scandinavia. But yeah. Yeah. Sweden's a big one.
Yeah. See, when I go international, and it might just be because I end up listening to a lot of Japanese metal, being who I am, I immediately think of something like Maximum the Hormone, who is awesome. Definitely check them out if you never have. They finally went up on Spotify in the US about 2 years ago. Wonderful band. But then broadening that out too, I mean, you have all these amazing talents from just little nowhere countries. So like someone like Hamfers or Tyr from the Faroe Islands, both just have their own thing. Tyr singing mostly about Norse mythology, Hamfers singing folklore type stuff in a doom metal perspective. all in Faroese, 100% in Faroese. So
Is that
like,
the one you showed me from New Zealand?
no, they're from the Faroe Islands.
What was the one from New Zealand you showed me?
New Zealand is what are they called? Alien weaponry. They sing all in Maori.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much cool stuff out there, and even if you don't understand it, just being open to it will bring so much cool, like, new music into your life, and really interesting genre defining and breaking sort of stuff. And content's the same way. If you get out there and look for it, there's going to be some cool stuff out there.
Cool. Navah.
Jason Hennessey just mentioned the Bee Gees. I love the Bee Gees, dude.
Oh,
it's always welcome.
One of the most metal bands at the core. Yeah.
At the core. So it's funny, when I suggested this as a topic to talk about, where my mind went with it is actually in how each market will pick up trends in SEO and PPC, and how that kind of parallels with metal. So when I think about the bands I gravitate towards, Powerwolf, Blind Guardian, like I'm very much into the craftsmanship of German vocals. Like there's a lot of really beautiful craftsmanship that goes into that melodic arrangement. Whereas when I think about, say, the UK, it's about the fun of the experience. Like it's everything is coming together absolutely beautifully. And so what got me thinking about it is that if you were to take a band and like our access to music from different parts of the world, the YouTube generation that's allowed to kind of be influenced by the entirety of it, as opposed to brick and mortar first content, like I'm actually far more excited about that generation of metal up and coming than I am about, say, siloed insights. Like I'd love for us to get to a point where Google doesn't delay rollouts for content or for updates or for tools, where the US gets it all first, and then you have generations behind on paid media management, or, to be fair, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, so on and so forth. I'd like us to get to a point where we all can agree this is how you should run things, but then also understanding that different locations respond better to different stimuli. Jesse, like, I know you and Keith have a great talk about migrating content to Japan. Like I think it was your talk.
I don't think it was us, but we've talked about it.
Maybe I was just so enamored with the brilliant things that you guys were saying. I assumed it was on a stage.
Well, we were talking about it on, I think, Facebook, because at IBM being so international as far as a company, we're really still connected. So like I can hop on our Slack and talk to any of our employees basically within the marketing team, which is thousands of people. And one of our employees I think they live in Canada now, but are from Japan. We're talking about how translating content or localizing it in Japanese can be incredibly challenging, because the way the written structure works of the language, you don't necessarily move down to a new line to continue a sentence. That can actually break up things, because two characters being next to each other can make a different word. So you have to be cognizant of it and make correct decisions so that the sentence flows correctly. So that's probably what we were talking about.
For sure. And so it's when I think about international metal and what makes different locations produce the content that they do, I think it goes back to like mood and what we're interested in, but also getting to a place where everyone's on equal footing. Like you don't necessarily have to think that this country is going to put out this content. And I wish I had examples of bands that break my international stereotypes of what kind of content will come from each country. I'm sure you guys have them.
Well, I mean, like I hear that all the time of people being influenced by other bands, like in different countries. I think even Maynard from Tool says he's influenced his vocals from Opeth. And like people are influenced by anyone around the world. And by the way, when we refer to international metal, we are talking about Href Langcore, right? That's the new name for it.
Well played.
Yeah.
Well played.
So, I mean, yeah, I love seeing people being influenced by each other all over the place. Yeah.
And that brings up a good point, Navah, when you're talking about like what's expected versus breaking that mold. If you're into metal and you talk about Norway, you're going to think of like black metal bands like Mayhem because, I mean, it came from that country. It ended up at some point towards the late 90s, early 2000s, becoming one of the top exports of Norway specifically. So then now you have bands like Mjölker, where she has very influenced by black metal, has put out albums that are very black metal intensive, but had a folk twist to them. But then with like, I think 6 months ago, put out basically a hauntingly beautiful folk album that has nothing black metal in it. And it's still wonderful. But it wouldn't have been something that I listened to unless she had that original tie. So it's interesting finding someone that can take something that's a product of where they're from and then mold it and bring something completely different to a wider audience of people.
And language. Like in metal, I don't care if I can understand what is being said. And I'm going to leave it for the SEOs on the call to talk about like the impact on SEO, but where my head went with that, a lot of PPCs threw their hands in the air when close variants came about. And it's like, oh no, my account structure is broken. Well, if you're saying effectively the same thing and you're evoking the same buying intent, does it really matter that we're matching this exact keyword to this exact landing page? Like, and is your budget actually being effectively deployed? So yeah, I will rock out to things I have zero idea what they actually are saying because it makes me feel good.
Yeah, I find it inspires me to adapt. So like listening to tons of Japanese metal and music, I pretty actively work to learn Japanese. I'm horrible at it. I can read some, but it's something that I'm always looking to because there's that cultural element. Like I like music from Japan, so I want to try and learn the language. Same with Norway. I started learning Norwegian last year a little bit because I like a lot of Norwegian bands and I want to know what they're saying. So I think taking that unknown and using it to adapt and become better, especially in your marketing, can be hugely beneficial and improve how you perform or how your business or the site you're working on performs. Using that unknown, diving headfirst into it and learning everything you can to make it better and find a new angle to bring something in at.
Yeah, and that makes it. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, this whole conversation is also making me think, look outside your own niche if you're operating in, like, for example, search engine journal. We wouldn't just look at other competitors in the search. I would look to, what's working on BuzzFeed, what's working on New York Times, look at all these different blogs out there. You can get inspiration from anywhere. And that's sort of what I'm hearing a lot is sort of like a theme is what we're talking about. So just want to throw that out there. John, did you want to add something else?
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, things that I didn't realize I like was like Indian metal, where they bring in like sitars and tablas. I didn't realize tablas were so metal. What they are, but
anything can be metal.
Yeah, you can get an electric triangle in there and make that metal. Sure, get some distortion on it.
Cowbell, more cowbell.
More cowbell. Awesome. All right, cool. Let's we have a couple more topics we wanted to chat about. This one came from Navah, so I'll let you kick this one off, Navah, about personalization of content versus common denominator messaging. What did you want to talk about there?
So that came about because, and it's funny, as we were talking, I was like, I really hope we get to talk about live shows versus streaming versus CDs. So when Danny sent this out for us to prep of like what we wanted to talk about, one of the things that stands out to me is there are certain bands, amazing CDs, truly profoundly amazing CDs. They crash and burn live because they just either their vocals aren't as polished, and so, or they maybe aren't as trained, or they don't they want to play only their new things to promote their new album, but they don't think about what really excites their customers. So an example I'll give. Sabaton. I went to for those of you that don't know, Sabaton does history metal. So you get to hear about different wars. Yeah, like different people in history, different wars, history metal. And so for those of you that are looking for metal to introduce to your kids, Sabaton. It's great.
How do you spell that?
Sabot. Saba. So it's Sabaton. Sabaton. They're great. Love them. Really strong vocals. Easy to remember lyrics. Whatever. So they did an 11-song encore because there were songs that we just really wanted them to play. We shouted, we clapped, we're like, give it to us. And they did it. And there was this, they not only did it, when you go to a Sabaton show, there will be a tank on the stage because there's a tank on the stage. But second, you have history narration and like a projector with like themed slideshow and like the lyrics so you can sing along. It's a great show. 1000% recommend going to see them live.
Holy cow.
But they were prepared to meet our intent. And even though they had a plan set with a very cohesive flow, absolutely rocking core show, they knew that there are certain songs that have a high probability of being requested as either encores or to interrupt the show and like do this instead of this. And so they have those songs ready to go. So it wasn't a burden to perform it. There have been other instances where, and I'm not going to name the artist, I'm only going to name artists where I was happy, where they tried to do very gimmicky things, or like they tried to play songs that no one knew. And so they were just, they had a very dull audience, and there was zero engagement. And like, they even called it out. Oh, so you guys don't know who we are, huh? Like, what's up? And so just the message from a marketing standpoint to take from that is be mindful when you're going to do an initiative that you translate whatever core content you're going to put out there to each channel, but then also understand what is the true market share that channel represents for your ideal customer versus the aspirational customers we were talking about at the beginning, versus they're just in a bucket over there. Like, I happen to be hitting them, but I'm not counting on their business. So that's what I intended with this topic. I don't know if that fits the theme, but thank you for letting me go on my rant about bands that don't message map and don't pay attention to what their customers want.
Thank you for introducing me to my new homework assignment. I love history.
Yeah, there you go.
If you want to add more, check out Iced Earth as well. They're another.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
All right,
yeah.
Can I go on one more rant, please?
Go for it. Yes.
All right. So there was this profoundly wonderful concert I went to. Demon Wizards is the combination of one of my absolute favorite bands in the world, Blind Guardian, and Iced Earth. And so what ended up happening, we were talking about covers, like we kind of hit it to death, but it's relevant now. Instead of only playing Demons and Wizards songs, which not all of us knew, they played cover, like Blind Guardian singing Iced Earth, and then Iced Earth singing Blind Guardian. And it was this profound experience because it showed that it was a true combination marriage of the two artists. Sorry, I
all good.
See, it's kind of also hitting what you were talking about growing up. Rush has been one of my all-time favorite bands, always. And they are known for having an insanely good live performance. Different Stages came out in 96, I think. And it's one of the greatest live albums ever, in my opinion. In my humble but accurate opinion, as Keith Good would say. It's amazing. It's fantastic. They play all of 2112. It's insane. They absolutely nail everything. Waited my entire life to see Rush. Finally saw them on the last tour they ever did. And while it was a great show, the sound was terrible at the venue. The speakers kept clipping back and forth for some stupid reason. So while it was an awesome experience and they played some crazy stuff that I never thought I'd hear, it was kind of ruined by the experience overall. It wasn't the band, it was the experience. that kind of also translates into SEO. You have to make sure the experience work, or the content's not going to matter anyway.
Yeah, you can't get that technical.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you have a terrible website and the content's gold, you might be pleasing the search engine, but you're not going to be pleasing the user, so it's pointless.
Yeah. Jesse, you got me on a good one. I saw in college, I'm a huge Faceless fan, number 2 favorite metal band, then the Opeth, but I saw them in college, and they were opening for Between the Buried and Me, so obviously I'm going to stay for that one. And I had to leave really early into Between the Buried and Me because their light show was garbage. I thought I was going to have, I'm not epileptic, but I thought I was going to have a seizure because it was just constantly flashing in your face. No slow time. There's just constant, horrible flashing lights. And I couldn't enjoy the show to the point where I had to leave. It makes me think about if your site is way too flashy, you're trying too hard to design, but you got no substance and you can't pay attention to the substance, the people are going to bounce.
Totally.
Yep. Awesome. All right. We have one last topic. This was another from Navah on YouTube.
I need to thank you all for letting me rant.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Like you all, you all are just letting me go on my rants.
Love it.
So yeah, Navah, do you want to talk about how digital has sort of changed the way we interact with our favorite bands?
So the story I wanted to share is actually Dan Vasc. For those of you that know me, you know I have a deep, deep love in my heart for The Witcher. So Dan Vasc did a fantastic. Anyway.
Sorry, go on.
So Dan Vasc did a cover of what was it called? Toss a Coin to Your Witcher. Absolutely exploded his channel. And so that was a very real case study of the value of focusing on viral content and kind of being entrepreneurial in your music choices and paying attention to the times. But what was interesting is that as his channel was blowing up because of that cover, his other songs began to get light and attention. And he actually just posted today, I put it on my Facebook wall, a video from when he began his channel 10 years ago. He did a Dragon Force cover, and he showed kind of his awkward 20-year-old version beginning it, and then his like, oh, I'm strong, I know who I am, great. And the substance of what he's talking about in that video, as well as with his ongoing war with DistroKid, where like they were kind of scamming him out of money, is the path forward for music used to be very straightforward. You'd go through traditional channels, you had to sign with a record, like you'd have situations like Ghost and others, where some people would get the shaft. Whereas with YouTube and other streaming services, it really has opened up the doors for creative, innovative, entrepreneurial artists. But it's not easy to know what levers to pull. And it made me think a lot about SMBs and their access to kind of digital marketing. How easy is it for folks to get access to people like us? Because you either have to be well off enough that you can afford to engage someone of caliber, you have to learn it yourself on top of your day job, or you get stuck with kind of freelance folks. And so one of the opportunities or problems I'd love to see us as a digital marketing industry solve is how do we do what YouTube and other streaming services have done for metal artists, like making it that accessible of a platform to make a living. Like how can we do better as an industry to help SMBs not get screwed over? Sorry for language.
I mean, yeah, and there's a lot, because like you said, like, I mean, a lot of SMBs too are just DIY people. They may not have the budget to hire an agency or something like that. So providing, I mean, a lot of them go to conferences and things like that, but providing like guidance on where to look, who to trust. Someone tweeted me like yesterday, like, how do they do it? Like, okay, well, you got to know who to trust. Well, how do they do that? Well, read articles, look into authors and things like that. And a lot of this stuff is complex. I mean, like you said, some people, there's no traditional way to get into PPC or SEO. There's no like record label or school to major in it. We just kind of stumble our way in it just by the digital means, access to information.
Yep.
Yeah, it's tough. I think it's a matter of like finding who's out there and finding the right platform where they are out there. maybe it's Twitter, maybe it's LinkedIn. It's not LinkedIn for me. And being willing to kind of break that kind of social fear and say, hey, I have this problem. What do you think? I've had several people do that after my talks. They'll message me and like, I have this. What do you think? And I'll give them my opinion. Well, I mean, I can't devote too much time to it, but I'll say, this is what I think. Definitely try it out and let me know what you think. I think there are platforms in the works now that I think could help solve that. I know Jim Christian and his team from Advanced Search Summit, they're working on a new platform that's almost like a digital marketing specific social platform. And that could change everything. If people join that, they have direct access to vetted digital marketers that they can ask questions to and just generally talk about.
Same thing with the Paid Search Association on the paid side. Granted, we're just paid, but yeah, 1,000%.
Yeah, I know what we do here at DFW SEM, we invite speakers from all over the country to come speak. And then it's a lot of SMBs and newbie digital marketers, and they get to come learn. And then they got full access to go and ask questions and learn from these amazing speakers.
The State of Search is a rocking event. If I can plug State of Search, amazing event.
True fact.
I made friends. I met Jesse and Navah through State of Search, and yeah, great place. Jesse, you made a good point of like, it's conferences like that. You can just go up to these speakers and have full access to some of the best speakers in the world and ask questions. I know after my talk last year, I had, no questions at the end of my talk. I'm like, man, did I do a bad job? And two people come up to me with their laptop and say, you mentioned X and I have a problem with that on my site. Can you show me how to fix that? And there's no better feeling in the world. So the speakers love when you ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Well,
Please ask me questions.
Yeah. And we're just about at our end time here. So we want to wrap up with sort of a takeaway of what we want people to learn from heavy metal. So does anyone want to go first with your big takeaway? Go, John. All right.
All right. Things I've learned from metal. Wear a mask, wash your hands, and don't be racist.
Yes.
Simple rules.
Mic drop. Boom. Nothing else.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of hard to top that. Honestly, I would say understand the intent of the content you're producing and be willing to adapt to your audience's needs to fulfill what they're looking for. So that's a huge one, and metal's great for doing that.
Yep. Navah.
I'm a little sad because Jesse took the core of what I would have said.
Oh no.
Well, I think the experimentation point was a good one. If you do not have to be risk tolerant all the time, you do not have to put yourself in situations where you truly feel uncomfortable. But what the metal community is very good at is fostering a sense of safety, and that if you experiment, if you innovate, there will be a group to catch you. Yes, you might mosh a little bit and have some bruises, and like you learn from that, and it's great. But ultimately, that ability to experiment and become better, that you're always looking to become better. And Tracy Ingram put that in there: adapt and overcome. Just be confident and be comfortable failing, so long as that paves the way for even greater success.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Well put.
I like it. Good stuff, guys. I had my last rant of sorts that I wanted to share since we didn't get to cover this yet, because this is a topic that comes up a lot, and I hope this will be a good analogy for people. So to paraphrase Little Slayer, Angel of Death, content length, the meaning of pain, the myth that I want to die. Now, let me explain what this means. There is no ideal song length. There is no ideal content length. And, song length does not correlate with awesome music. Content length in no way correlates with awesome content.
I don't know, Danny. I've read some number of studies that correlate the
Oh
song
no.
length to the number of record sales and.
Well, there is that, but just generally, here's my example. So we mentioned Metallica's one. It's a 7-minute song, 7+ minute song. That's a great song. They also put out Some Kind of Monster, which is an 8-minute plus song, and it's just terrible. So, you can have the same musicians playing the same, instruments, guitar, bass, drums, singing lyrics, but if you're playing a terrible song, it's just a terrible song. So if we say like the logic is, correlation study says 1,256 words is the perfect length of a blog post every time. That's like saying every Slayer song should be 4 minutes and 50 seconds because Angel of Death, it doesn't make sense to me. So that's my rant. All I want to say about content, just like a song, it should be as long as it needs to be. Never overstay its welcome. Self-edit. Don't be like Metallica. Entertain your audience. Make your point and get out. So that's my one thing I hope you all will listen to and stop listening to correlation studies on content length. And also anything about latent semantic indexing keywords.
That was if I may, that was one of the most metal posts I've seen you put out there. Just like, what up, HubSpot?
Yep. Hi, HubSpot. Anyway. So that has been our fun little show. I hope you all enjoyed it. This has been Navah Hopkins, John McAlpin, Jesse McDonald, and Danny Goodwin. We have been your metal hosts. Hope you had fun. Hope you maybe picked up a couple things along the way. Stay metal and stay awesome. And tune in next time we do this. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll check you out next time.
Bye guys.
Bye everybody.
Bye.